Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with the midweek update in the world of cannabis. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. Then, of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. And there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. And we're going to start with some sales news out of Ohio, as Marijuana Moment reports that Ohio medical sales hit 1 billion milestone, state data shows. And it seems like this was quietly released. Obviously, Ohio should be more proud of this. Why they're reluctant to share this great news is beyond me, but nonetheless, Ohio medical cannabis sales have officially surpassed the 1 billion mark since dispensaries started serving patients in April of 2019. Total sales reached over a billion as of September 18th and then grew by another 8 million over the following week, according to data posted by the Ohio Medical Cannabis Control Program on Sunday. The sales to date include just under 119,000 pounds of plant material and just under 11 million units of manufactured products. So good job, Ohio, thus far. Hopefully, the sooner you can launch adult use, the sooner you will see more benefits to the economy overall, more tax revenue, more jobs for everyone in Ohio. While the milestone for the medical cannabis market comes as the state prepares to double the number of dispensaries, again, great news, by early next year, with regulators announcing in May that they had selected 70 new licensees through a lottery system. It's likely that increasing access points will lead to more sales, no doubt, but advocates are also hoping that the legislature will enact a bill to allow doctors to recommend medical cannabis to patients for any condition they see fit. Also a big benefit that could dramatically expand the marketplace even further. So more information down here if you want to pause to read. Otherwise, you can grab the full link. But moving on to another story, as Marijuana Moment shares, despite the munchies, we have a new study. Cannabis legalization is tied to lower obesity rates. Stereotype busting study finds. We love to see another study like this compiling more data. The study published this month by the Journal of Health Economics analyzed obesity data in Washington state, one of the first states to legalize cannabis from 2002 to 2018. Researchers at North Dakota State University, the Center for the Study of Public Choice and Private Enterprise, and the Metropolitan State University of Denver said that despite cannabis munchies factor and overall concerns about obesity, the relationship between legalization and excessive weight gain remains an open and under-investigated question. So I'm glad some researchers are looking into it. To help fill that gap, the study set out to investigate what happened in Washington state in the years after adult use retailers opened 2014, compared to the rest of the country after controlling for other factors. The experiment showed that the opening of rec cannabis dispensaries led to decreases in obesity rates relative to a counterfactually constructed Washington state. Specifically, the state's obesity rate is an average of 5.4% lower than the synthetic counterfactual throughout the post-treatment period, compared to an average negative 0.01% difference in pre-legalization years. And so simply put, our primary experiment revealed recreational cannabis legalization, which allowed for rec cannabis dispensaries to open, actually resulted in decreases in obesity rates for Washington state, the authors wrote. So take that, Prohibitionists. Love having more data to prove you wrong. This is somewhat surprising given previous literature and almost a century of false propaganda, finding that cannabis use is often misassociated with increased unhealthy food consumption and lethargy. And so a bit more information highlighting other studies that they were able to pull from, but again, just love seeing more data to prove the prohibitionists wrong, and I'm just glad to be a prime example of someone that uses cannabis in moderation, yet I eat as healthy as I've ever had. I have more energy than I've ever had because I'm in the best shape of my life, and so love to prove these prohibitionists wrong. So more information if you wanted to read through this, but with that, we have another study, so thanks Tom Engel for sharing this. This new study finds that using medical cannabis is tied to significant reductions in use of opioids and other addictive painkillers. So again, if the government actually cared about public health whatsoever, one of the highest priorities would be descheduling cannabis and ending cannabis prohibition once and for all. Because if you want to save lives, it seems like we've got some clear indications that ending cannabis prohibition would, especially against this opioid epidemic, as most patients rated medical cannabis as being important to their quality of life. So we're not going to go through this whole thing, but we'll show this snippet here. If yes, how has medical cannabis use changed your use of pain medications? And so a bit more information here. Group category, description of response, I think the number of people polled and the percentage with their responses. And so again, you can grab that whole article below. But with that, again, another one, Puff Daddy sharing this one from Forbes. So thank you, Puff Daddy. As just want to highlight the facts that we keep finding, despite it's not being spread in mainstream media, and the awareness is not out there yet. But medical cannabis could replace addictive opioids for pain relief. Another study suggests as nearly 86% of surveyed participants reported reduced pain after taking medical cannabis. And so whether it's cannabis replacing it completely or using it alongside it to help you get off of an addictive substance or just help you manage both better, cannabis is obviously the answer, and we ought to deschedule sooner than later. And so with that, just highlighting what the schmucks in Congress keep blabbering about while they don't do any action, because now we obviously know it's more important to look at their actions versus their words. But just happy to share that words are at least being spoken as opposed to them staying quiet. As in a new video, Senator Booker spoke about a twin crisis. So now he's changing his view that there's a twin crisis of continued cannabis arrests in many states because they haven't reformed their laws, and the lack of banking access for cannabis businesses in legalized states because him and Schmuck Schumer continue to delay passing SAFE because they work for big pharmaceutical companies that pay them to delay SAFE as opposed to the American people that they conned with their campaign promises that they have not yet fulfilled. And so with that, also just sharing this one from Tom Angle, yet I'm not that happy about this one, and I'm really hoping that nothing comes of this because obviously when it's researchers and other advocates associated with Prohibitionist organization like Smart Approaches to Cannabis, some of the biggest losers in the USA, sent a letter actually urging Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to bring a House-passed cannabis science bill to the floor for a vote without further delay. I do not want this because I do not trust anything from prohibitionists like Smart, who fund Kevin Sabet and these other clowns that keep trying to demonize cannabis and keep the status quo alive. And so while this sounds promising, we cannot trust the deceitful fucks at SAM based on their track record, as they're the ones that got the adult use initiative taken off the ballot in Oklahoma through a court case, and they're the ones actively fighting in Arkansas right now to try and stop their ballot initiative for legalizing medical cannabis in November. They tried in Missouri, they failed as well, so clearly they're not working in the interests of the American people. If they were, they'd be calling on Chuck Schumer to bring the SAFE Banking Act for a vote in the Senate right now because it has the votes that would pass and that would make America much safer. And so clearly you just have to wonder, what is their incentive to want to make this pass? Is there some sort of way in the bill, the language that is written, that would give them the right to, again, frame studies to look for harm as opposed to medical benefits? We don't need any more studies looking for harm because we have 50 years of it, and it has not been very successful because they're essentially fraudulent or shitty studies that don't hold weight because they're not actually looking for what they should have been looking for a very long time. And so regardless, just to highlight the hilarity in this, the immediate passage of this bill is vital and would continue to support for science. These guys don't represent science. They represent the status quo, and their science is whatever they deem to be true. As you have exhibited so consistently through your remarkable political career, they can't be talking about Schmuck Schumer. We appreciate your consideration of our concerns and welcome the opportunity to discuss them further with you. Sincerely, the undersigned. And so obviously we hope this doesn't happen because obviously the best thing for the American people would be to deschedule it so it's treated like alcohol and tobacco and so that everyone gets the rights to the plant back as they should have had all along. And so I digress from that, but some state news before we get into some other details. Tom Angle shares a new push by Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers would allow citizen ballot initiatives in the state that could open the door to finally letting voters decide on cannabis legalization. And so apparently he's not wasting any time as he's called for a special session on it for next week in hopes that, they can get this on the ballot in November, which would be a month and a half away. Obviously, he's got to work quickly, but we'd rather hear this than not. Be great off if Wisconsin can pull this off. If they don't, it's almost just more, of lip service to get reelected for Tony Evers, but we'll see what happens there. And so with that, Natalie Fertig shares at least New Jersey and other states that to reform their laws, finally launch their program and seeing the benefits. Seems that universities in New Jersey are jumping into the cannabis higher education mix. And so Rutgers Law School announced a certificate in cannabis law and business, obviously beneficial because this industry is not going anywhere. New 6-month program supports business owners entering New Jersey's legal cannabis industry. And so obviously this would help, I think, get more people access to opportunity in it. So more information here to learn what Rutgers Law School is offering. So you can pause to read, but also just wanted to share this interesting one from Chris Goldstein talking about want to see real world price gouging. And this is the current situation in New Jersey, mainly because you've only opened 12 since launching April 21st, 2022. You've opened 12 dispensaries. That's slowly expanded to, I think, 18 or 19 that have been approved thus far. But it's a state with a population of like 8 million people. And so clearly you can't properly supply the demand. So one of the main problems of not opening enough outlets, or at least a lot more outlets, is that we will see price gouging until more outlets get to open. Just take a look at New Jersey's adult use cannabis prices, which are completely out of reach for average income residents and consumers. And this is a damn shame, but until the regulators allow more outlets to open up, the prices are going to stay high because there's a limited supply for the demand. Average of $60 per 1/8. Here's a survey of all the menus today. So just wanted to share this with you. You can pause to read essentially, but Apothecarium, TerrAscend, Ascend, and so it's got like a deal versus the average, Ascend deal versus the average botanist, which is Acreage, Cannabis, Columbia Care, Curaleaf, Garden State Dispo from Air, Rise from GTI, and Zenleaf Verano. And so again, you can just go through there, see which MSO's offering the best prices versus the worst, and see what that could lead to over time. But no doubt, people want access to legal cannabis, and so some that have the funds are going to pay it. But unfortunately for the average resident or consumer, this is a stretch. And so what is the solution to this? The CRC getting their heads out of their asses and opening more dispensaries for more legal access points to bring the prices down for the citizens of New Jersey. And why they don't want to work in the best interest of the citizens of New Jersey is beyond me. They don't seem to understand basic economics or anything, these New Jersey regulators. And so with that last one, Tom Angle sharing, yikes. Illinois' new 2022 annual cannabis report shows a glaring lack of diversity among cannabis business owners. Though the state says it's taking steps to address it with new conditional dispensary licenses for for social equity applicants. Although these licenses have been delayed for over 2 years now due to ongoing lawsuits, and really at this point, all these social equity applicants can hope for, based on headlines that we've seen, is that hopefully they could open their dispensaries in early 2023 if all goes according to plan, as opposed to, giving them a definitive launch time. However, a lot of it does require the applicants doing what they need to do and then coming back to the regulators to get approved on time. And so while you want to provide equal access to everyone, especially those of color that might have been harmed by the war on drugs, if they don't do what they need to do and come back to the regulators to get approved on time and someone else does, you want to obviously give the license to the other person that shows their competence and that they can run a business. And so while you can use this data and say, oh, maybe it's racist or we did not give as much people equal access to opportunity, we just don't know. And so while it's good to know the percentages of who owns what, you also just have to wonder how involved the regulators were with trying to make it equal, or if this just happened to be in the beginning, who got what based on who showed what sort of competence. And so while it is good to know where you're at so that you can make changes in hopes of providing as much equal access to opportunity to the citizens in your state, and that should be the goal of all states that reform their laws to provide as many Americans with equal access to opportunity in this new booming industry, I look through this and it does make me think though that the cannabis industry is already a lot more diverse than some mainstream industries that do not get the stigma, probably like big tobacco, big alcohol. Now I am speculating, and so if you have proof that that's not true, please let me know in the comments, as I'd be happy to take a look. But I would imagine those industries, we're going to see a lot more numbers over on this side than we'd see over here. And so prove me wrong if you can, especially when you jump over here and see adult use cannabis market by gender and you find out that it's actually more women participating in the industry than men. Majority of 51% versus 49%. And so while licenses should be handed out based on the quality and content of someone's character and not by the color of anyone's skin, obviously this seems as fair and diverse as an industry could possibly get in the early days. And then when you just see over here non-binary, it almost wants you to just take their social justice approach a lot less seriously, because if they're trying to make this happen, we don't want any of it. And so last state news, Louisiana cannabis permit receives high-profile applicants. And just so highlighting that while Louisiana is getting their medical program up and running, there are high-profile applicants, like many other Americans, that want equal access to opportunity in this industry. So just to highlight Tulane University, former NFL player Steve Gleason, the Louisiana Democratic Party chair and former superintendent of the New Orleans Police Department are among those vying, of course they are, for Louisiana's coveted 10th medical cannabis pharmacy license. And so in total, 28 applicants are bidding for the New Orleans area license, which grants access to an exclusive club of businesses selling legal cannabis. The Times Picayune and New Orleans Advocate reported Friday, and the permit will be the first new ones granted since medical cannabis sales began in Louisiana in 2019. And so obviously, as they're giving more access, more people want to join in, just highlighting why we should end cannabis prohibition, because the legal industry will obviously eat out the illicit one, and that will benefit everyone more than the status quo. And so with that, Reason.com sharing that more states poised to ease cannabis laws after Election Day. And so this is just, again, another article summarizing what we're looking at in November. 10 years after Colorado and Washington embraced legalization, the movement looks unstoppable. And so while it looks difficult right now and we seem to be on pause, I think the movement is still unstoppable despite the delays that we're seeing. And so I'm not going to go through this whole article. You can grab the link below, or you can pause to read for just a bit more information on what we can see on 2022. But with that, some snippets from investment firms. So take these with a grain of salt as they are speculation, but of course good to read and take in and balance with what you already know. So we've got Todd sharing what Cantor has to say on U.S. cannabis. So thanks, Todd, for sharing this one. Investment summary: safe is not dead, contrary to what stocks may be implying. So you can pause to read for a bit more of what Cantor has to say. Especially key question is A, is safe in the lame duck just wishful thinking? B, how does the election outcome impact chances of safe passage? Then that's another factor we got to consider. Does it really come down to two senators, Booker and McConnell? And what changes to SAFE would secure its success and which would kill it? So a lot more information in there if you want to read it. Well, we've got Dennis Rudov sharing some timely ones. So thanks, Dennis, for sharing Cannabis Weekly Update, including valuation comps from Roth. More of the focus on Canada in this one. And so I will just share weekly rehash, Canada Update, sales and pricing stabilization, U.S. legislative, U.S. consumer, global, and company highlights. You can pause to read. Well, we've got the weekly rehash, Canadian market update, second half cannabis sales historically stronger, strike in British Columbia's cannabis distribution center interrupts operations in BC. So you can pause to read. Otherwise, you can grab the link below if you want to be able to see it a bit more clearly. While Exhibit 2, slowing growth rate. Exhibit 3, inflation declines in July. 4, cannabis store growth slowing, leading to improved store metrics. And then sales per store metrics increase sequentially. And then last one, a cannabis industry valuation comp table. The source is Refinitiv, Echelon, and Roth Capital Partners as well. So you can grab the link below if you wanted to get a better look at that. So moving along though, latest cannabis valuation comps and cannabis stocks performance update by Echelon. So thanks, Dennis, for sharing this one. And so we've got cannabis company share price returns weekly, monthly, 3-month, and 12-month. If we scroll down, or just move over, we can see an updated comp sheet from Echelon. And this has large cap cannabis companies, Canadian cannabis companies, large cap US companies, Canadian retailers, small mid cap Canadian growers, and then small mid cap US companies. So you can pause to read that one. While comparable companies' consensus estimates as well. So a lot more in there. Grab the link below if you wanted to go through that one. Well, we've got weekly cannabis update by Echelon again, another separate bit. So thank you, Dennis, for sharing this one. Cannabis market and movers last week. Cannabis market highlights net change in active Canadian stores, the lowest in nearly 3 years as independent store closures accelerate. And so more information there, especially, competitive areas like downtown cores. That's where we're seeing independent store closures. But I still think there's a lot of opportunity in rural parts of Canada. Well, we've got this last one a little bit focused on Canada as well. But thanks, Dennis, for sharing latest U.S. and Canada cannabis developments by Echelon as Canada hits record high cannabis sales. U.S. developments, Las Vegas City Council approves cannabis consumption lounges. New York awards conditional adult use cultivator and processor licenses, new license applicants delayed, while New York to allow home grow for medical cannabis patients. And so this is news that we've gotten in the last few weeks. And then more U.S. developments. Oklahoma Supreme Court denies request to include adult use cannabis petition on November ballot. Thanks, Prohibitionists, you fuckers. Air Wellness introduces lost in translation brands. Cannabis, Trulieve Cannabis awarded a Georgia Class 1 production license. This is, again, all what we saw last week. Part 2 announces reopening of relocated dispensary. Cresco Labs launches flagship Cresco brand in Florida, while Vex Science files provisional patent application for new crystalline forms of phytocannabinoid acids. And then so last one, we've got a few more actually still. So Canadian developments. I'm not going to read through these all, but these seem to be focused on High Tide if you wanted to pause to read and learn more about them. They are a retailer in Canada, I believe. While Canadian retail cannabis sales up 4.5%, and Aurora Cannabis reports fourth quarter 2022 results below consensus estimates. And so again, stay away from the LPs, but all this is here if you want to tune in and get some info. And so with that, thank you, Jungle Java, for sharing that Green Thumb Industries to hold their third quarter 2022 earnings conference call on November 2nd, 2022, after the market closes. And so already MSOs are getting ready for Q3, so we can look forward to that in November. In time with the new elections that we'll see. And then with that, thank you, Young Justin, just for sharing that. While we're not seeing it out of many of the MSOs, it looks like TerrAscend, at least, is still, insiders are the only C-suites buying when there is blood in the water. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad for the cannabis industry, as many of the C-suite and the execs already own a ton of shares. And so for them to buy more at this point in time is, again, hard to time anything, but you'd essentially be catching falling knives. But regardless, this one person here, Craig Collard, is at least trying to, he's confident, as most of us are, and if we had more cash, we would likely be buying down, much like this guy. But regardless, just highlighting that we do like to see some C-suites in this industry buying shares because they believe that TerrAscend's not going anywhere and it's going to be worth a lot more in the future than it is now, as we all likely believe the same of these MSOs. And so it is at least true to our thesis, and we like to see this. And so with that, Trulieve launches Khalifa Kush Cannabis in Florida through exclusive partnership with Wiz Khalifa. So they announced the official launch of Khalifa Kush premium medical cannabis products in select Florida retail stores this Saturday, October 1st. It's an exclusive partnership with multi-platinum selling Grammy and Golden Globe Award nominated recording artist Wiz Khalifa in Florida, although I do think many other companies and MSOs also have exclusive partnerships with Wiz as well, but it's one way to get new customers in. Patients can visit any Trulieve location in Florida on October 1 for a chance to receive Khalifa Kush swag and prizes. So more information. But good to see Trulieve trying to take little steps to get more consumers under their branch and bring people in. While we've got some interesting news out of Canada, as again, LPs, more reason to stay away, as Canopy Growth announces divestiture of Canadian retail operations. So another example of Canopy biting off more than they can chew at the beginning and then having to do damage control, as the decision supports the company's strategic objectives, including streamlining Canadian operations instead. So essentially, we want to stop losing money, and this is one way that we can do that while achieving profitability, so stop losing so much money, and advancing a premium brand-driven portfolio for consumers. And so I'm not going to go through this all, but it's just here if you want to read more. But the company has reached an agreement with OEG Retail Cannabis, an existing Canopy Growth licensee partner that currently owns and operates the company's franchise Tokyo Smoke Stores in Ontario. As part of this agreement, OEGRC has agreed to acquire all of the Canopy Growth's corporate stores outside of Alberta, as well as Tokyo Smoke-related intellectual property. So they're buying this all from Canopy, so at least Canopy will get a bit of money from that, so they'll stop losing money from these operations. And the company has also reached an agreement, the 420 transaction with 420 Investments Ltd., pursuant to which 420 has agreed to acquire the ownership of 5 retail locations in Alberta. So another company is coming in to pick up the Alberta assets. Closing of the OEGRC transaction and the 420 transaction is subject to all approvals and other customary conditions. And so more information or overview of the deal Again, just highlighting that when you bite off more than you can chew, you got a lot of damage control in the future to try and offset all of the losses from the mismanagement of money. And so with that, some international news. Happy to share, though, the Jungle Java shares recreational cannabis use in Australia could be legalized by federal parliament, Greens say. And so this is new, still early, no legislation written up, but we love to hear this out of another country like Australia. Federal parliament could override state laws to legalize recreational cannabis use, according to new constitutional advice obtained by the Greens. And so I'll provide more information when we get some developments on the story, but we love to hear this, as obviously Germany is a big country slated to have the legislation done by the end of this year, hopefully pass it in 2023 and launch in 2024. It's great to see Australia also acknowledging the obvious benefits of ending prohibition. And so with that, just sharing another story, as we like to see more people taking advantage of the Germany opportunity. Big Tobacco jumps into Germany's pot industry alongside Snoop Dogg. So thanks, Todd, for sharing this one. This one comes from Bloomberg, and I have another similar one, just highlighting that the tobacco giant's bet highlights the promise of the German market, which is Europe's largest economy and has more than 83 million people. So I'll put the Bloomberg article down below if you wanted to read more, but this one just highlights that it's British American Tobacco, one of the world's largest tobacco companies, which already has, I'm pretty sure, a large share in Organigram, as they wanted to invest in a Canadian LP early on to basically get as much research and information on how they can, bring cannabis under their umbrella, but is buying into a German weed startup, Sanity Group GmbH. And so, like we saw BAT make an investment in Canada previously, we're now seeing them make an investment in Germany. Otherwise, why would BAT even bother, right? And so they clearly see Germany as a much better and bigger opportunity than Canada has been, and so they don't want to wait any longer, and they want to take advantage. And so with that, a few more studies just to highlight before we round this off. Endocannabinoids may defend the body when it's being threatened. Maybe we should deschedule cannabis so we can look into this a lot further, because this would be good to know, as changes in blood levels suggest that the body is preparing itself for trauma, and that is something that our endocannabinoid system, does for us so that we can stay in homeostasis as much as possible. Does cannabis possibly help do that if we aren't able to produce our own endocannabinoids? We don't know, because cannabis is a Schedule 1 and we can't really research it effectively, but hopefully we're getting closer to a point. And so this article is psychologytoday.com. I'll put that down there if you wanted to read it. And so last one, just wanted to share this one from higherlearninglv.co. Deep dive cannabis for ovarian cancer. So another potential use for cannabis. This 1,200-word deep dive teaches students about the latest peer-reviewed scientific research regarding the potential effectiveness and positive outcomes of cannabis for ovarian cancer, another potential cancer that cannabis could have potential effective benefits. As a September 2022 research study entitled Anti-Cancer Activity of Cannabis Sativa, Phytocannabinoids, Molecular Mechanisms and Potential in the Fight Against Ovarian Cancer, that was published in the journal Cancers Explored, the potential benefits of the combination of chemotherapy with phytocannabinoid treatment in ovarian cancer patients. And so not getting rid of chemotherapy completely, but using cannabis, to complement the chemotherapy seems to have potential benefits. So again, not going to go through this whole thing, but you can pause to read, and if you're interested, you can grab the link below and read more. But just highlighting that cannabis is a medicine. We're finding more and more reasons to deschedule it and to change the status quo for the better, so we can finally study this plant and really unlock its full potential. But that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis News. Have a great week, everybody.